podcast listeners, if you hear my voice right now, I need you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone or on your computer, go to Apple Podcasts, search for Ask Your Oldhead podcast. You'll see my logo, my little picture, my little image there. Find the show. Please rate and write a review. It's a small thing, but it helps others find this work and find what I'm doing here. And it really, really matters, as small as that may seem. So if you could please do that before we get into the show, I would much appreciate it. Thank you for listening. Let's get into it. Peace. Computer. Peace. I'm Majestic.
My brother, Justice Rajee.
Man, so, you know, it's late in the year and a time of year when folks tend to either be home or go back maybe to visit someplace, you know, visit people in a place that they used to call home or was home. You know, or you know, at least speaking in my case, getting some contiguous days just to be at my home but not be working. Which is, you know, especially in the advent of everybody being happy about remote working, you know, sometimes the idea that we're, you know, well, I'll get to that. Just, you know, being home and not working now becomes a premium for me. So I thought it would be good. And there was something, you know, you shared with me in one of our engagements about your recent travels. You know, let's talk about a little bit about this, the idea of homecoming. I think, you know, earlier this summer year, I went home to a high school homecoming. And I've been home to check on my people and some other things, you know, in longer stretches this year and the last couple of years due to health and caring for my moms that have gave me a lot of thoughts about, you know, some of these different ideas around home. So I thought, you know, maybe it'd be a good, a timely conversation, because I know some folks are, you know, in the time that they may listen to this conversation, maybe begrudgingly at a table, you know, not like the earlier one that happens around Thanksgiving. This table usually a little different, but they might be somewhere kind of like, I don't really want to be here, but we got to go see cousin so-and-so because
insert name.
We gotta go over there. You know how much, you know how she feel about, you know how what's her name feel about such and such. So y'all got to stop by. You know what I mean? Some of that type of time. So, boy, we got to see the baby. You got to let us come see the baby. You know, like in these categories. So, I would pass it to you if you want to maybe get us moving, and then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one, to paraphrase Kendrick, you know, back to back. I like that record. Let me get back to that for the record in regard to like this idea of home.
Yeah.
Especially when we've merged all of our lives, right? And all of work and play and everything has now been merged post-pandemic. I think that's a really important component. Well, I'll touch on so later. But for me, based on kind of our cultural value system, which, you know, people can respond to holidays in a variety of ways based on, you know, culture. But, you know, for me, you know, I was, you know, of the type for a long time where it was like, listen, I'm not really coming to celebrate. And then y'all say I'm celebrating. That's just me. I'm not putting judgment on nobody. I'm saying, you know, black folks will tell you, you'll tell them I'm not doing something. And then they're like, oh, no, just come anyway. And then you'll get there and they'll be like, yeah, you know, you're celebrating. You're like, wait. I told you I wasn't celebrating. But you're here.
But you're right. Yeah. Like, I just can't be like, see.
So for years, I can show people better than I can tell them. You know, another black aphorism, right? But like, so, I mean, this was just really going to spend some time with my pop and with my uncles, just because, you know, one of the things that are important is that, you know, we came up with, you know, the idea of men and women as superheroes in our community, right? And I don't mean in the context of activism per se, although that may have been something that that people experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean superheroes in just like a real life, people taking the normal and making it like supernatural, so to speak, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you have these men and women in your communities that are close to you that do these things. And just to see these groups of men and women, and again, in the context of, we're close to 50.
Mm-hmm.
So these men and women are in their sometimes either in their mid to late 50s, if they were like, so let me frame it like this. If you're my pop and my uncles, you're in their mid 70s to 80s, early 80s. If you're the young boys to my pop that were kind of the intermediary to me, you still got 10 to 12 on me, which puts you at 60.
Right.
Right. So when we think about this kind of like, I don't want to kind of go into deep terms and be calling it senior care and all this shit. But, my point is look after your old heads. I'm going to give it to you straight. Yeah. Look after your old heads. Like, you could have people who were superheroes to you, but one thing that's undefeated is time.
Yeah.
And, engaging with them. And so just engaging with them who, as we are all family and you are family to them, like I'm family to them, like they don't make no distinction between, you and me when it comes to, I saw, I saw my other son, I saw my other nephew, right? Like
right.
he was down here last time, right?
Right.
So, but being with them, and then in the context, again, this superhero thing, and just thinking about what is the thing that a city leaves on you? Like not just your family, but your family, like a city via your experiences in the imprint that it leaves on you, which is a sense of home, even as you travel abroad.
Mm-hmm.
Right? All of us, no matter where you're from, the essence of where you had your early experiences frame a home inside of you, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And you take that, there are expectations, there are assumptions, there are ways of being, ways of interacting. Remember when we transitioned to college and all the assumptions we had from growing up were challenged when we get to another city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because then you're in another city that might have been either in the same state or literally 4.5 hours away for you or 5. But it's literally like you're in another world. And just thinking about how that home is built in you and how we take those things for granted. They are our factory settings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, it's important for us to think about these things, especially tying back into our previous conversation about this idea of the institutions that kind of, help us come to existence and help us interact with the world and teach us a sense of self, that those things become like, hey, this is what I expect out of the world. And there was a time where Black communities were generally more similar than different.
Mm-hmm.
Accents change, this changes, but generally they were kind of the same, right? You were running this shit like a rodeo, right? Like, like out there with you and in Houston, you run into like Black folks go to a rodeo, but at the same time, Black folks in Philly ride horses.
Yeah.
Right. So even in its dissimilarity, there are some consistencies. But you realize this imprint that it leaves on you. But when you leave that space, but still have that imprint and go back in. So, one of the things that I realized this, being in Philadelphia recently, is you see all the memes. Like there's a really funny meme that goes around like a dude comes out of his house and he sees a young boy and he says like, hey man, good morning, young boy, this and the third. And then the young boy proceeds to like, to say stranger danger for him, like being nice to him. And then the entire community ridicules the dude for being nice.
Yeah.
Starts to make fun of him, like just like, yo, what are you doing around here being nice? And you could look at that and and all the stuff books we read and all the shit we're doing in our lives. You'd be like, that's hyperbole, right? Like that's a construct, right?
Right. It's not really like that.
It's not really like that. Like you be home, so but you're like, it's not really like that. And I called you, at least for Philadelphia, it's really like that. It is really, I want to let everybody know. The stuff you see on TV with the Eagles fans and say we don't like you, and it's a Philly thing, it is real. It is not made up. It's happening. Right. And there's a lot of deeper reasons around it, right? There's a lot of deep stuff and historical stuff I ain't gotta go into for this conversation, but you really recognize, like, when you come out and you're not living like that from day to day all the time, and then you go back in and you have to put that armor back on immediately. Because people in that space always assume that that's what you're doing because you look like them, and if you're in the bar with them, if you're in Reading Terminal, if you're insert place, you're like them.
Yeah. Like,
so they're not treating you with kid gloves. This ain't Times Square.
They're like, why aren't you with the program?
Why ain't you with
being
the
all
program?
mellow for right now? Man, nothing mellow.
Yo, real rap. Right, see? Listen, I've been in the jail with my pop and my uncles. And the dude come up and, for people that's been listening, or people could go back to interviews that, Just has done with my pop, who he is and what he's done for communities and people. It just is what it is. And he's been an inspiration and a rock and a backbone for so many. So dude come to me and, I won't give everyone the whole conversation because it's an interesting conversation. But the gist of it was, when's the last time you thought really highly of yourself? And I was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, well, I, gave him some rap. He's like, no. When's the last time you thought highly and said this to yourself? And it was wild because I had to go right back into the was like this, like this, like this. He was like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Right? And then he just walked away. And it made me realize again how these ideas of home and the ideas of who's who and what's what, these are things that are built into cultures of places, and they are your factory settings. And they could be your factory settings that prepare you. They could be your factory settings sometimes that don't allow you to interact with other people from different places when it is, but like it really means something. And and I'll just, before I pass off for you to add on, one thing I took was like, even with everything, home, people say home is where the heart is, but home is where your mind state is. Home is where you are aligned in your factory settings and your intentions and how you engage in the world. And then how does that home allow you to interact in the world? That really, really hit me, that, I wanted to share with you. And I know you have, again, some other insights about like how you engage with home when home changes. And then I have a take on that as well. So,
yeah. And I mean, I think, when you call me and, even reflecting, especially over the breadth of the last years, but even in the last, I guess so that was August. So that's 5 months. I was in the same place you was at, with the same people in the summertime.
Right.
And then I was home, I was home over that weekend, and I think we discussed it for a homecoming and dual purpose, go spend some time with mom and do some other, family business. But you start moving around and it's like it's stuff it in the last 2 years, when I've come back here from being either an extended amount of time there, um, has been remarked to me. I want to say, I can't remember. Basically, that like my speech pattern had changed or like had
Right.
like reverted in a sense, not like change. You know what I mean? Like I was back to talking the way I talk more freely at where we come from.
Right.
This is all the various adjustments to talking that I would make here, and some
Mm.
and some of those
Mm.
not like for whoever might be listening that might be under the foolish idea that like what I'm saying like code switching out of like some need of survival or fear, but it's just there's an energy that you have when you're in sort of your ambient, like how you said, factory setting environments. I think, kind of related to that conversation we had about the Kendrick record and the sound of LA, LA area, West Coast broadly, right?
Right. Right.
Way language styles, mannerisms, and patterns, other pieces that are hallmarks of the way folks get it in and have lived on this side of the country. And it's a different pattern. It's a different rhythm to the way folks talk, a different expectations, different intonations of words. I'm sure some of our linguistic folks can get into it more. As I had to recently tell, I mean, we have a running joke in my house that people say something to me and I say nah, and jokingly but seriously I had to say, look, this is how I talk. I don't mean no. I mean, nah. Like, nah, wait, let me see. Nah, wait, yeah, let me have that.
Right.
Like,
Right.
nah,
Right.
let me go over there. Right. And you don't, when you're not in that space and you don't realize how fast you start to like move back in, but also where you almost start being like, wait a minute, all right, I gotta let me put my back down the way jacket back on. You know what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
even if I'm over in Willingboro, shout out to Willingboro, and somebody like,
Boom.
it ain't like this, it ain't like that. I'm like, hey man, that's that place. But if I'm shooting up to Trenton to see, my aunt, or I'm going over the way to get with your pop and your uncles, it's I gotta make sure I'm tuned into this environment, and this environment ain't like Oregon. The,
Right.
the beat ain't the same. The angles and the trajectory of the traffic, the way the light comes off the trees is different, and some of the sense of I always like to think about it for me that like places like how they feel normal or it doesn't feel out of place in a place, right? And I realize that some people, um, like if you live in a more suburban home with a yard, for some people, if that's the only type of home they've ever known, to them that's the default, right? So then when they go
Right.
to like a block of row houses, even if it's not actually dirty, in their mind they'll like be thinking, oh, it's kind of like grimy here, or there's so much cement, and it's like, nah, it's just
Right.
a block of row houses. Like, chill out.
Right.
Like it ain't not dirty. First of all, it's just old. You know what I'm saying? Like it's bricks.
But you know what? Let me just add on, because here's the thing about this, which plays into so many other stuff we talk about, is one, it's like if you go to the Upper West Side in New York,
Mm.
they're essentially row houses.
Yeah, it was
Now
row
they're very nice row houses,
house.
and the Central Park is over there, over yonder, but they're row houses, and you don't have grass outside.
Yeah.
But so it made me just think that about how much proximity and space frames things for people. And, as we talk about this idea of a metro identity, right? That impacts like this idea, because now we have generations of Black folks who've always had yards.
Mm-hmm.
We've had generations of Black folks who have not lived in a dense urban setting. Because the other reality of it is you can have an urban setting without it being dense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
Right? Like,
folks who like relocated, like came from basically, a rural setting. We're not talking about a rural setting because a lot of Black folks lived in rural settings that had yards. You know what I'm saying? And then
right.
small town, whatever. And then that environment of whether it's a dense space or a space that is more clearly like you can't hide that it's urban. You know what I mean? It's because there's some places where it's it's the biggest city amongst a bunch of smaller cities,
Right.
but it ain't really that much of a city. Like it's like, oh, this is a city? Like we here? Like, yeah, this is it right here. Like, oh, all right. All right. Now we out the city. It's like, oh, I missed it. You know what I mean? Like, no offense. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, you ever been you ever been to the Bronx? Like,
and shout out to Willingboro too. I want to say this for again, this metro kind of like identity, and you see it all across the country. But this idea that when you hit Willingboro, as a buck when we first went over there, again there was just like, wow, look at this, look at how big the streets are, right? But then you started meeting everybody and being like, oh, these is like the people live on this street, or it's like the same people.
yeah. They're
They're,
not
they're
really.
just put in a different space, but they're the same people.
Yeah.
And that cuts a lot of ways,
Yeah.
right? That cuts a lot of ways in a lot of cities right now where it's like, no, those are the same people who were there. They're here now.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just have a different spatial thing. And then, again, owing back to some of our other conversations, sometimes the resources when you're in a first ring or second ring suburban space aren't the same as when you're in areas with a concentration of social services or supports,
Mm.
right? Because they literally, from a size and space and kind of spatial context, they were not built. They were not built for you to have the problems that you may have, and that's just speaking
Absolutely.
very honestly,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
they weren't built for you to walk everywhere. They just weren't built for that. But you might have to walk everywhere. Some of them don't have sidewalks.
Some of them don't have sidewalks. Some of them don't have many transit links. So if you ain't got a car or can't get to a car, you know what I mean, you ain't making that appointment to get that rent assistance that you need this month. You know what I mean? Or you're gonna need some help. You know what I mean? And that the structure is the structure makes assumptions about what you have access to.
Mm,
And
mm,
and then the pivot on the other side I think about is especially like again, and I think so many people now live in these places that aren't, there's lots of people, but it's not, even if it looks like it's dense, it's not actually dense like a real, like like real density.
right,
You know what I'm
right,
saying? Like, but because everything's covered, people are like, oh yeah, that's like, that's like the city. I'm like, and it took me some time from a like an armchair urban planning perspective to look at stuff and go like, oh, it's every square inch of this is filled with houses. These are all single family homes with maybe 2 or 3 people in them. Like this ain't, so even people feel like, oh, my neighbors are so close to me, and it's like it ain't close. I've been on, the first
right,
house I remember living in, I think is, um, I want to say, I think it's 12 houses on what is it's not, it's the same distance I think the house I lived most of my life in from the corner to the end of our yard, which is like 5 houses, and it was,
right,
it was way more. It was like 20 houses, and that was even for that where that was at in Trenton, because it's on a dead end street across from a state property. It was kind of loose. Even it was like simultaneously dense and remote at the same time.
right, right,
So, and I think that the social stuff you pick up, and it's a, when you move in different, and I think I want to be clear for folks who may listen and not understand, it's not necessarily, it's not that like these places are dangerous or like more dangerous than some other place. It's just your social act, like the amount of people that are moving around, the things you need to be aware of, and then the things that due to, the reality that people are experiencing, what they're experiencing, your more denser places and places that are built more dense, and then have all of the attributable legacy of those environments in our society, you end up in the cross path of more stuff than maybe you would in a place that is less populated, or it is the community that's off an exit and two different highways, so that you kind of only over there if you need to be over there, and you're not over there because you're passing through to get somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? Or because your cousins live over. Like it does. And so you just got to be tuned in to the space. But like people got stuff to do. They ain't worried about you. Like I mean, there's in a general sense.
Right.
We still sometimes get that. Oh, in the city, and it's like, man, people got stuff to do. Man, they ain't worried about you.
No, and that's right. There is a centeredness. Again, going back to that meme where it's like people really don't want to be bothered, and you can take that how you can take it. So another thing, and I'd be really interested to see how you see this,
mm-hmm.
is the second kind of element of when home is one way and then it changes.
Mm-hmm.
So Philadelphia is, a fundamentally different place than it was, let's say, 20 years ago, definitely 30 years ago, but it's actually even a different place than it was 10 years ago. Again, there's some real deep, urban planning conversations of why, the, worshiping at the altar of tax revenue and all the things that happen when mayors and, council people do that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But and then there's capital coming into the actual cities, usually from other places, but sometimes not from other places. And there's an interest in living in a place, and in some places, especially legacy northeastern and some midwestern cities, and increasingly now. So there's nowhere to go but up. Like unless you're Houston and you just continually take over new places and call it Houston.
Right, just keep spreading out like it is.
Just keep spreading out. Like you keep being like, it's Houston. Like, dog, that's not Houston. But like, yes, it's Houston. Which Atlanta? Where you live? Atlanta. Where you live? Alpharetta. Dog, you don't live in Atlanta. But you just keep calling Atlanta. But that's okay. Like, there's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah.
And so you get these glass towers and you get universities that, again, we could have a deeper conversation, but let's say for the sake of this one, a university is acting in good stead saying, hey, we have to build student housing, because if we don't build student housing, people are going to go buy homes and displace people out of neighborhoods.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have that conversation, because part of it, we always go, people are coming in, changing neighborhoods. If you wanted to not change your neighborhood, the best thing you could probably do is let them build a couple glass towers.
Yeah.
Because if they do that, then you can relieve some of the pressure on the actual neighborhood, which can tend to be traditionally Black, brown, generally speaking, you want to use quote unquote people of color, poor white folks, however you want to frame it. And so you see that. So you see these glass towers going up, but those glass towers usually represent like knocking down a Pep Boys or Popeyes. They represent a parking lot that you saw as a child or as a young adult. That's not a parking lot anymore. Side note, that parking lot also sometimes represent when they knock down Black folks' houses.
Mm-hmm.
But like,
yeah.
But you see a different thing. And so again, the size and scale of change can be like, yo, what is that? And what is going on? So me and my pop, we go to eat at a restaurant, and the restaurant was somewhere different than when the Uber dropped me off. So I was mad at the Uber man. I muttered, "Drop y'all where the restaurant is." Then I looked, I thought it was a block away, like a block and a half away.
Okay.
I got out, I was like, "Oh shit, there's the restaurant," because the restaurant had moved a block and a half,
Right.
and it was now underneath a student housing place, student housing on like 44th and Chestnut, like damn near across the street from 46th Street. And for those, I'm sure you could put some stuff in the show notes. Across the street from 46th Street, which is like Mill Creek projects, which are some of the most notorious projects in Philadelphia that still exist. Most of the other notorious projects in Philadelphia that people talked about, Raymond Rosen, also known as Diamond Street, Richard Allen, like Southwark down South Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Those don't exist anymore. Mill Creek is some of the only ones you couldn't get rid of for a variety of reasons. And there's a tower looking at 46th Street. And I was tripping.
You did that on your bingo card?
I did not have that on my bingo card. I lost the urbanism gentrification bingo card on that one, Jack. But so we go into the restaurant and my pop is like, "Yo, when did they do this?" Right? Like, what just happened?
Right.
Like to the point he goes, he starts asking people, "Yo, when did this get built?" Right? Now, dig the move. He lives 7 blocks away.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. That's right. Right across the show.
Yeah, he lives 7 blocks away up the way up Lancaster Avenue. He's like, "When did they build this?" And so again, and I'm not talking about the disruption in the, they're destroying us way, right? Because again, if you listen to us, from Just, we center ourselves and we're going to be okay regardless. And we don't,
yeah.
we don't participate in the full Bob and 8 thing.
Yeah, we ain't doing that. But yeah.
So, but like, I'm just like, and so again, that wasn't just a take because this is my childhood. I'm seeing this restaurant is down the street, but it's a block away, but it's a very nice one. Actually shout out to Kilimanjaro restaurant. It's a Senegalese restaurant, so if you're ever in Philadelphia, you out by, West Philly, you should go there. And it was a lot of support for the place and they had built them a new restaurant.
Right. They got a new location.
They had a new location, doing more commerce, grounding Black people, and in this sense, it's important, grounding the relationship between the West African community and the traditional African American community in the community. Mm. Which we, these goofy FBA guys and all that always want to make these separations, like folks from the continent and Black folks here weren't always going back and forth and connecting and creating, I think, willful dissension to further someone's goals. But that's for another day because we're talking about home and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Just I want to get your take. Add on have you seen it, but also I want to get your take on how you saw and see Willingboro the same or different as it has changed or evolved over the last some years.
Well, it's challenging because the thing that I see, and I've observed it as I've been back and forth in my own travels in life and following the road that gets me to where I needed to be to do what I needed to do. Which led me 3,000 miles away. But it's like, sadly, at times it's like on one hand, it's a good amount of folks who I grew up with. People like my mother, who was able, to for however they did it, move there, purchase a home, have some equity, even if, they have had to take loans, you got to fix the crib. The hard thing about a house is you got to fix stuff on it. And if you have it for a while, you got to figure out how you're going to put a new roof on and all that. And largely, you can move around and things appear to be the same. And I'll say on another note, in terms of comparative density of like the types of bedroom communities that are kind of all around that the kind of the outer northeastern arc of the Philadelphia metro area. So Willingboro, Burlington Township,
You can say Mount Holly. Was you at
Mount
Mount
Holly.
Holly there?
Yeah, Mount Holly being probably the outer edge. You know what I mean? Then heading south, everything that's considered Mount Laurel is a big giant space of space, but basically
Right.
everything on the spine of 295 and the turnpike going down to Cherry Hill and then down to the southeastern outlet, with Sicklerville and
Ah,
Hanford
Sticklerville. Yeah,
and all that stuff down there alongside.
yeah.
Right.
L side.
You get this place that is largely still pretty much predominantly black folks. That transition at least happened in schools when I was school age, and I think in the larger kind, meaning although that I would say when we moved there, at least at the high school age, you still had almost a, I don't think it was 50-50, but it was a plurality of white folks still lived in Willingboro. Their kids did not move back to Willingboro in mass. Not that there were no white children in my graduating class, but comparatively, that's not what the way things went down. Moving around though, like a lot of the like it's a working class, working class. These are such loaded constructs these days. I still consider it a working class town and next to other little working class communities. And so it's dry, although I think they may have finally moved on from that. But you see this two things at once where you got a lot of retirees, a lot of folks my age's parents, if they still in the area, a lot of them still in the area, right? Other folks who may have moved later, and generally a nice community, maybe not as fancy as others, right? But then you also see sort of the other side of like, oh, if we don't have new developments that will keep that'll keep people from moving stuff into the town that you don't want in the town, right? So yes, you can't buy any alcohol in Willingboro, but also you might be hard pressed if you want to just have a nice dinner with your family and not have to like go to someplace else, even if it's 15,
Right.
20
Yeah,
minutes.
which is always tough. Right.
Right. Like, you have these aging. I mean, the place I like to get steaks, cheese steaks and chicken cheese steaks. That's been, right by near my high school, and then this parking lot and shopping center basically looks exactly the same since 1983 when we moved there, 84. Shout out to my man Omar and then I can't remember the name of the shop off the top, but he got a shop there, barbershop and a hair salon. Been there, I think, at least at least a decade and a half at this point, if not more.
Right. Right.
And then a rowing chain, and it's a Dollar General now, but a end cap that has been like 17 different other supermarkets that never stay open, but the Dollar General stays open. But to look at it visually, it kind of looks almost like it's the same asphalt from 1983, which could be a pro and a con, as opposed to kind of like from a like, how do you feel about your space sense?
Right.
Is there space within how this is constructed? If I had the inclination that like I need to go back to Willingboro, like it would just be that it would be in some way the place for me to return. And although and several of my peers, shout out to some of the folks that organized the reunion, still stay in town or they stay close and their peoples is in the area. So it's not like this abandonment, but it's just as much as folks have been able to maintain what they have, it doesn't point to like space for something new, right? It doesn't point to an environment and a positionality with the way things change. I mean, I have my own fears that at some point, those with a little bit more financial flexibility will be like, wow, you got this kind of compact community with all these houses that are kind of easy to fix and like physical plant schools that are like, if we just start moving out there, we could like basically take it over. turn it into something else. So I have my fears because due to as the racial composition of Willingboro has changed, let's just say there were a lot of 2008 wild valuations of properties, and even if you go on any like the Zillows of the world, you'll see at least what to my eyes is a strange pocket of relative to the size of the homes, inexpensive homes that are actually kind of close to stuff if that's what you were looking for. Like if you wanted a yard and a timber frame house that you could fix up pretty easy, they got it for you. Now, will it double in value in 5 years? I don't think so. Like I don't think that's gonna happen for you. And New Jersey's got wild property taxes, but there's there's a sense of enjoying being home, but there is also still some of the things where I can see like there is like economic stagnation here. This isn't like if you cool and you can take care of your house, great place to live. If you were like, yo, I want to like go have a fly coffee, like 5 minutes from the crib, that's not in the cards. Right. Like if you like, yo, I want to go to like a fancy supermarket, that's not in the cards for you. Now the produce junction is great and they got lots of great produce at good prices. You know what I mean? But it ain't fancy. Like I said, it ain't fancy if that's what you're looking for. If you want to be able to have some of the dynamics of a more like urban environment where you might have, again, you might have bars, restaurants, places of worship, walkability, and a reason. It's like, nah, this is not walkability. Like there's sidewalks. It's not sidewalks by little part of Willingboro, but there's sidewalks in most of the area. But if I used to walk a mile, almost 2 miles to school in middle school because I was too short. I was too far for the bus, right? And
you got caught in that danger zone.
I did, yeah. I did, it was like but high school, my high school was right near my house, so that. But
okay,
yeah, but for the first 7, 8, 9, I had to I had a long hike, and there's not like anything to stop at along the hike. It's just a sidewalk next to houses. There's like nothing to see. And so these things that like some folks see as hallmarks, oh, that makes the neighborhood safe when there's nothing to see. But then it also makes it like wildly uninteresting because it's just backyards and fences. And, some of the social isolation, like the way the neighborhood has changed, like most of the buildings look the same, but most of the folks thankfully, there's largely a lot of like black families and families that appear to be black or black adjacent, still own homes in the neighborhood. And I think that's, at least I think that's an indicator of some sort of economic stability. I think is a good thing. But it's still sometimes like when you live on, you don't like any suburban structured place, you don't really got to get to know them people over there.
Right.
Because like they house way over there. Like, not like, you know what I mean? Like if I go, the house I started out in life, which was a row house, when you share a porch with another row house, you kind of get to know them people because y'all got a shared porch.
Well, you got to.
So you got, Miss whatever and them live next door. Y'all got to know each other a little bit because you see each other. You can't avoid it. You don't need to know somebody that's like 70 feet across a street and up a driveway. You just see them like, hey, brother, I see you. If your kids ain't the same age, you know what I mean? So there's like 3, 4 houses. I ain't never met them people. That was 1984. I don't know who lived in them houses. There's one house. I ain't never seen the people that lived in that house. People living there. You know what I mean? And it's strange, right? So then home for me, a lot of times going back is people that I know, right? So it's, folks I went to high school with, my mans and them, and I think they might have sold their place now, around the corner if they're there. But since they older, he over be with his grandkids and them in another part of South Jersey, because that's where they stay at, and with priorities change. So it's not like I could pop over, like, hey, what's going on? Just want to come check on you. My man's pops. Other people. So then when all those things start to cycle out of a neighborhood, like it's home because my mom is there and whatnot, but it ain't like home beyond that. It ain't home like, oh man, Mr. Johnson, man, what's going on, Mr. Johnson? Like Mr. Johnson gone and his kids gone. Like they gone. They ain't there no more.
And that's where I think the other part of sometimes when Black folks we talk about fighting for neighborhoods. Let's just make sure what we're fighting. What are you fighting to keep it? You're fighting to keep it not only with the people who can afford it and who have been there, but you're also fighting to make sure that it's evolving to be able to deal with the future of your community as well. Because sometimes people will try to turn communities into senior communities without recognizing it. And that's not me assuming that seniors don't like coffee. But my point is, like, we be like, oh, we don't want no damn coffee shops. Well, I'm here to tell y'all, for everyone that's listening, just in case you didn't think so, that me and Just like tea and coffee. And we're super Black.
That's right. I love coffee.
We're blackety black, actually. And so when people start this whole idea that like coffee houses are not good for Black folks, no, that's not true. Coffee houses that respect and understand community are good for places, regardless of ownership. Now we acknowledge that, Black ownership of coffee houses. Shout out to all the Black and brown and concerned coffee houses all across the country and world, right? Because the other part is sometimes we act like coffee shops are just only like an American context, American concept. Like people only here care about the coffee shop issue when it's a global thing. But you telling and talking about that story, God, is important because it's like, what are the prescriptions for communities that were built a certain way? Black folks came in, built a healthy community, and then we're just like, okay, now what happens when all the stuff that the people who would be there and want to live amongst each other in community also want?
Mm-hmm.
But we may not have the process, or sometimes people might have had the interest, because to your point, it might be like, hey, what if we keep all this stuff out and none of y'all come? Right.
Right.
What if we keep on and none of y'all get interested in coming over here because there's no coffee shop. So therefore, none of y'all want to come in with your beanies and your hipster hats,
right, with
your ambient music.
Hey,
your little computer, right? You know what I'm saying? And not talking to people.
I should add, too, there's a, as the dude who don't live there all the time, you know what I'm saying? There are touchstones that, like, couple bars where, like, if I am home, I know if I can, like, go, hey, y'all gonna be over at this, I can go over there, you know what I mean, and maybe see some running into somebody on the humbug, as you would say. Have a conversation. But the thing I think about is, when we get to, like, home as this intentional, this, like, place that, like, leaves it's like a Hallmark movie. When you ride in, everybody like, oh, it's you. Like, you're here. Like, oh, you're still Mr. What's his name? Still selling pumpkins. It's like that. I've always wondered, like, is that how other people feel when they go wherever they go? Because, like, I don't ever really feel like, I don't feel like I ride into town and it's like, oh man, I seen Justice. You know what I'm saying? Like, remember how we used to feel when we used to go out to West Virginia, and we'd be like, man, I'm sure somebody done told somebody that two brothers in a truck just drove up in here, just because of the way it felt entering town. You know what I'm saying? Like, I never get the feeling, even and it's on my list, actually. I tell, I know, like, some of our brothers and sisters, I tell them, I'm like, hey, I slide in to check on my moms, do some other family business, and most of the time, I can't squeeze in finding people, even though it's a sizable, cipher there. And talking to a good brother of mine, when I was at the homecoming, and making sure that, like, when next time I'm out the way, that I give fair notice, so that if people are gathering, brothers come together, brothers and sisters come together, I can tap in. But it's also the thing that I think about. To me, it's a harbinger of, like, sort of the future of, like, community without the like spatial dynamics being set in. If you're not in a space where you just on a block and or you in a cut of the woods or whatever have you, where it's 30, 40 families or neighbors, your sense of like you gonna have to reach out to be next to people. You know what I mean? And if the built environment doesn't encourage it, and then if our habits don't encourage it, because I think the thing that I know I am very prescient of is and it was something that was actually an insight of my trip to Rwanda and going through the area in the Nyarambo where it was all these restaurants, and it's a place you'll see on like a lot of the Instagram. Oh, what the Nyarambo? What eat? But it's also like the way that neighborhood is structured. That's the way folks eat. Is there's like all these tables and the restaurants open to a street, and it's not for cars. So socially, if you like, yo, I'm gonna go get some food, you're gonna be eating food with a whole bunch of other people, right? You're gonna be in a space that is built around the idea that you're next to each other. And we have so many places that are built around the like, I want to be next to you, but not too next to you. Like I want to be, like next enough to you that I can see you. But if I don't really want to be around you, like I can, be solo dolo. And I don't know what that means for us. You know what I mean? The things that we may have taken for granted, when even if you had the familial reality of like, we live in the city here, we have another component of our family that maybe is still in a more rural community in the South, and we go back and forth, and that dynamic is different because that environment was structured different, where this environment was structured urban, so you can work in a factory. This other place was structured around farming or timber or lumber or other commodity, like the work in the industry was kind of dictated the terms of life, and then the structural conventions, whether that was connectivity through your church and church related functions, or connectivity through again, or the family reunion and the elder in the family's birthday, and like these other things that made you hang out. Right? There's one high school in town, so the football game is everybody in the high school. You know what I'm saying? It's going to support all of the kids, like that kind of. We don't have as many of those structures, or at least those structures I don't think should be taken for granted as the way that drives what we hang out around. And so home be home, and then it'd be like not home, and then it'd be like I don't even know none of these people. It's like a whole new people live here. Like, like all the people I know left. So it's like still people that look like me, but they're not the people that I know. And now you might get to talking and be like, oh, you so and so cousin? Oh yeah, all right, I know your cousin. Or, I know you, or at our age where you go where you so and so's child.
Right. Right. That's how you're defined, right? Like you're so and so's child.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, you really touched on something there, God. Just like again, this idea of like what happens even when there's people who look like you there, but the other part of community. And especially if you don't then have ways where you build community.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of goes to the third element of home that you talked about as to transition. Like this idea of what does it mean to be in your house
Mm-hmm.
when it's like everything is happening in your house. At least for some people every day, and for some people 3 times a day. For some people, important to note, they can't stay home. Right. So there's some mugs every day. They got to get out their house. Right. But for people who can work from home or do work from home, because I don't want to say can like it's a privilege, because that's your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But like, talk a little bit about where you are with that idea of like, hey, what does it mean to have this time off and be in home, but interacting in the home, not according to how you make money?
Well, I would say for me, it's like, because when you do really work from home, and in my case, it's the just given the way my job is structured and other things, it's the best way for me to do what I do. But then it's like you be here all the time, So, you get up in the morning and do that stuff you need to do. And then if I got, a couple of Zoom meetings that I need to work on something, there's days where you go and so that space in your house where your stuff is, if you like, I got an office, I have a room, thankfully, that is my office where I work at and where you see me right now, where I'm also recording this podcast, right? And so then so there's all my personal effects in here and my music and books and other stuff. But then it's also like I work in here, so like I got my work computer and I got papers and things that I had to do and then there's association, like when you need to take a break, if this was also the room I want to like relax and chilling because I got my, I can put on one of my records. It's like, oh man, I'm still like at work. Like you got to like intentionally make some separate, at least for me, I have to intentionally make some separation between the two. Right. And like, I'd like have when my work laptop out is out, I'm at work. When I put that away and put the other camera that I use for work, like I put that off to the side and take that off my monitor and I'm not in work, right? So that I have some sort of breakage from the idea of that I'm in this place where I do business. Um, it's the sense of always being on um, can, at least for me, and I don't know how other people deal with it, especially in other industries. Maybe they just like being like that, or maybe they just, I don't know, maybe they do things differently. It could be like I just need to leave my own house so I can feel like I'm off now.
Mm.
But I live here.
Right.
Like I pay a mortgage. Like this is my house. Like and, and then you get this weird feeling of like, oh, like I don't want to be in that room for a little bit, or like, you know what I'm saying? Like do stuff to intentionally change the energy and change my orientation because it, I mean, I know, there's depending on what's happening in your life and the age of your kids and other things, there are definitely other conveniences that people like about working from home, from if pick up and drop offs or, food prep, da da da. But there's definitely something to me that is a little, I'm not a stalwart on the like, oh yeah, we don't need offices no more. I'm like, yeah, I mean, sometimes, might be good to have an office. Sometimes you want to take, some of that stuff out of your house, man. Like you live there. Like, you don't, your job may be a defining uh, focal point of who you are, but it also maybe, like the thing that changes every 2.5 years and you move to another position, but somehow, I have a checklist of cleaning that I need to do, and I was working on it, and I have a bin of stuff in a plastic bin in my garage of things that I cleared off a desk at 2 jobs ago. And because it's like, personal effects is like, there's some notebooks, there's some like things people gave me, pictures, like pictures I used to have on my desk that I don't have on my desk because I'm not at my office now. Like I'm at my house, so I can see them people all the time. Like, and I don't know what to do with that stuff. And it's a weird feeling of having that happen in a place that is like, again, in your own space that like wouldn't really define you. And I think it's something for us to be considerate about, and in a future where, um, you're gonna more than likely, if you're doing something that doesn't require machinery or equipment, or isn't people based in a way that you need to be physically next to the folks. A lot of different types of jobs, they're probably going to either have the option to work remotely, or they're going to be like, "Yo, we would prefer so that we don't have to pay for an office for you to work, somewhere else, your house, and assuming you have a home environment that is suitable for you to be effective and be able to do what you need to do." But then it's like, yo, I can't pop up and like walk around the corner easily just because I live on a hill and in a residential neighborhood. There's no run to this corner store for me. Which I'm not. I'm in the future. There may be future development that there will be, which I'm excited about. But other people are like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, nah, man. I need to be able to walk and get a frosty beverage, or at least get my thoughts out of my head. And the lie of the isolation you know what I mean, that makes you feel like, oh, I might be, you know, I think some people think, oh, I'm more safe or I'm more this, I'm more that. Like, nah, you just over there and hopefully your neighbors is doing all right. So therefore they won't, you know, something happens with them, it won't happen.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's so much behind that. So hopefully they won't. There's so much present just in
Yeah.
that.
So,
Just hopefully they will. I mean, you know, just you know, I take a lot from your point about this, and I take a lot from I think from a societal level, we went from everybody outside all the time, and in a lot of quote unquote cities, going back to this whole conversation, and not just big cities, but other places. It was like, here's your like city square, and here's your main street, and here's your this, and you know,
mhm.
and it's happening. And then it's like, hey, the world's shutting down. Be at home, right? Like whatever home look like to you, be there. And then it's like, okay, you can kind of come outside, but since everyone like kind of being home, or some people liked it, stay home. But then other people was like, you come back,
Right.
you stay home. And it's like, okay, so how do you develop relationships with your coworkers when it's like you stay there?
Right.
And then the days that you do go to work, you kind of like, all right, I'll be here for a minute, dog. I'm trying to go back home.
Right.
It's like now, I'd rather work with a shirt on y'all can see and a pair of shorts. Right? Like, you know, and so this idea of home when everything in your world, and it's very similar to how like everything in your life is on your phone. Everything in your life takes place here. You know what I mean? Like there's no like separation. And I think for young people, thinking about third spaces, you know, thinking about other ways they're interacting with people matter. You know, college enrollment is down and will be down.
Yep.
Again, for a lot of different reasons converging. But like, we really need to think about how people are going to be interacting. Like we take for granted people interacted, and you kind of had the people who interacted differently at jobs. You're like, okay, they're over there. But now you got a whole bunch of people, especially depending on how the age of people, who don't know how to get along with other people. And even though they're back in school talking to people, they don't really know how to interact with other people. And since you were on the internet all day for years, they prefer to be on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then when you look at people like, oh, these streamers, or even we want to touch back into to the election, yes, because they're used to watching people on a screen all day. And then sometimes you're telling them to do it again. Like, hey, you want a degree? Cool. Just don't come to class.
Right. Right. Get in this Zoom.
Get in this Zoom and do it. Like, is
Asynchronous
that
learning space. Do your modules. You know what I'm saying?
I like that. Yeah, back to back. I like that record. Told you, Josh, you're a smart guy, man. Like asynchronous learning environments. You know what I'm saying? Make sure tell people just drop that jewel tonight. But like, yeah, you in the asynchronous learning environment, and like you just watch people on the what's the name. So guess what? As soon as you watch the professor, you get on there, you start watching somebody else say some crazy shit. Not I'm saying the professor said some crazy shit, but maybe they did. But like,
Yeah, you know.
the other person is definitely saying some crazy shit. And so I think, again, kind of going back to the foundation of this, home is not just the physical place, it's the place that structures the factory settings. It's the behaviors, it's the sense of how you see and function in the world. And we need to make sure, just as we want to make sure for young people and all people, home is healthy, we need to make sure the psychic context of home is also healthy.
Yeah.
Because it has the impacts on how we interact with each other. So,
so with that, I say, if you happen to be home listening to this, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Before put on with your fuzzy socks on or something, you know what I'm saying? Maybe have a glass of something warm, you know what I'm saying? Either warm in temperature or warm when you drink it, you know what I mean? Um, you know, think about it. Like, you know what I mean? Like how often do you connect with other people? You know, how often is your home a home where people can gather? Do you wish
Mm,
that, right? Do you go
mm.
enjoy going to gather at other people's homes? You know what I'm saying? These are they're important considerations when we think about the social fabric and really our health and well being because it's like like I said, I had to call our good brother who stays here locally because I was sick a couple days, just time and stuff we hadn't hung out. And I'm like, hey, man, we need to hang out. so, so either tonight or tomorrow morning, I'm going to hang out with you. Like I was letting them know, you don't got a choice in the matter. You know what I mean? Because it's important to just be with each other sometimes, and we can lose sight of that. So if you happen to be home, or be somewhere that feel like home, whatever, or you with some other people, hey man, enjoy that. You know what I'm saying? Make the most part, take the best part. But don't go if you don't celebrate some of that stuff and you don't want them to say you celebrating. You know what I'm
You celebrating your hair?
saying? Mess your whole revolution up. You be like, nah, man, I'm fighting the system. They're like, well, go on there and fight the system. Get you another plate of that mac and cheese.
Yeah, black folks
Oh,
will tell
man.
you real fast. You did it, didn't you? Go on and get your plate. Be quiet about that shit.
They be like, he here? I thought he said he wasn't coming.
You know he was coming. He wanted a plate.
Right, he wanted some of this.
I want to tell all you real radical. I mean, y'all need to learn how to cook.
Right.
Radical. You can't cook. So if the revolution started, you couldn't even eat.
Right. You go
No.
you gonna have to endure the other politics, and so you can get you a good plate of food. That's on you.
Yeah, that's on you. You know what I mean? You don't want to go nowhere and see your family. Cool. So you better learn how to cook. You're
Right.
sitting there suffering in silence.
Absolutely. So with that, they got anything else, man? I was just say, peace.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Good Brothers. Thank you to my good brother, I'm Majestic. Good Brothers is a part of the Ask Your Oldhead podcast. The Ask Your Oldhead podcast can be supported by searching for Justice Rajee on Patreon and becoming a patron. Also, you can support by listening, subscribing, rating, and then sharing wherever you listen. Soon, like any day now, this will be coming to YouTube and some other places, and there'll be a new packaging, there'll be some new ideas and some stuff in the works. I know I've been saying that, but if you listening this far, then you probably really care, and there ain't that many of y'all. So, dig me, I ain't lying. But in any event, man, be safe going to the new year with a clear mind. So, peace.